In the quiet village of Alaoma, surrounded by thick forests and golden farmlands, lived a humble farmer named Obi. He was known not for riches, but for his good heart and patience. Every morning, while the cock crowed and mist danced over the yam mounds, Obi would carry his hoe and step into the fields humming old songs his father taught him. He had little, a small hut, a patch of land, and a heart that refused to envy the rich men of the town. But life in Alaoma was not kind to the poor. Seasons of drought had turned many farms to dust, and Obi's harvest had been failing. The elders said it was the anger of the gods. Still, Obi never stopped believing that kindness and hard work would one day bring him peace. When others grumbled, he smiled. When they mocked, he kept quiet. Yet deep inside, he prayed for one miracle, even a small one, that would change his story. One evening, as the sun folded itself behind the trees, Obi heard something strange from the thick forest beyond his farm. A crying voice, soft yet filled with pain. It sounded like a woman in distress. At first, fear gripped him. No one went into the forest after sunset. The elders always warned, spirits wander when the moon is shy. But the cry grew louder, trembling with sorrow. Obi's heart would not let him ignore it. He grabbed his lantern and walked toward the sound. Branches snapped under his feet, and cold wind brushed his skin. Then, by a small stream under the iroko tree, he saw a woman glowing faintly, lying on the ground with a wound on her arm. Her eyes shone like moonlight, and her skin seemed to shimmer. Obi gasped and almost dropped his lantern. She was not human, yet she looked helpless. The glowing woman raised her eyes weakly. "Please, help me," she whispered. Her voice echoed as if it came from two worlds at once. Obi trembled, but knelt beside her. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice shaking. "A traveler," she replied, "hurt by a hunter's arrow meant for a deer. The wound bled light instead of blood." Obi hesitated. Should he run or help? But something deep within him whispered, "Compassion is stronger than fear." So he tore a piece of his wrapper and bound her wound. As he worked, her glow dimmed until she looked like an ordinary woman. He gave her water from his calabash and said softly, "You are safe here." The woman smiled faintly and whispered, "You have saved me, farmer. You will not regret this kindness." Obi brought the woman to his hut and gave her his only mat to sleep on. That night he couldn't rest. Strange winds blew around his hut, and he heard whispers outside. When he peeked through the window, he saw shadows moving among the trees, tall, dark, and silent. Fear pricked his skin like thorns. He quickly prayed to his ancestors and stayed awake till dawn. At first light, the woman was gone. Her mat was empty, but the wound cloth lay folded neatly beside a small clay pot filled with shining seeds. Obi stared in wonder. Then, from outside, her voice floated in the wind. "Plant them with care, Obi. They are seeds of destiny." His heart pounded. He ran outside, but there was no trace of her, only a faint fragrance of lilies in the air. Obi kept the clay pot hidden for days, unsure what to do. The village people mocked him when he spoke of the glowing woman. "Maybe hunger has entered his eyes," they said, laughing. But one morning, he decided to plant the seeds on a small patch behind his hut. The soil accepted them eagerly, and by evening, small green shoots had already broken through the earth. Days turned to weeks, and the plants grew taller and stronger than any Obi had seen. They bore strange fruits, golden, round, and bright like the sun. When he touched one, warmth filled his palm, and he heard a faint hum like music. The next morning, he plucked a fruit and carried it to the market. The traders gasped. They had never seen such beauty. One rich merchant offered him 50 cowries for a single fruit. Obi sold 2 and returned home richer than ever before. Within a month, the story of Obi's golden fruit spread like wildfire. People from far and near came to buy, some even traveling from other villages just to see the miracle farm. The king of Alaoma heard of it too and sent his guards to collect a basket for his royal table. Obi, once mocked as the poor farmer with torn clothes, now walked proudly through the market. Children followed him, calling him Obi the Fortunate. Yet inside, he remained humble. He knew this wealth came from something greater, a gift wrapped in mystery. But when fortune knocks, envy follows like a shadow. The other farmers began to whisper. "He must have visited a juju man," one said. "No man grows gold from soil." Another spat. "If the gods give, they also take." Still, Obi ignored them. Each night, he knelt before his small shrine and thanked the spirit woman, wherever she was. What he did not know was that envy had already begun to plant its own dark seeds. One evening, as Obi sold fruits at the market, the village chief, Chief Nyerdozi, stopped by. The chief was a man of wealth and pride, wearing coral beads and walking with guards. He looked at the golden fruits with cold curiosity. "Farmer," he said slowly, "how did you grow these things that even the king desires?" Obi bowed respectfully. "By the mercy of the gods, sir." The chief's eyes narrowed. "The gods rarely bless the poor. You must tell me your secret." Obi smiled politely. "There is no secret, my chief, only hard work and faith." But the chief was not satisfied. He sent one of his guards to spy on Obi's farm that night. The guard returned at dawn, trembling. "My chief," he said, "the fruits glow in the dark like stars fallen from heaven." The chief's greed was lit like fire. He decided he would have those seeds for himself, by trick or by force. That night, Obi dreamed. The glowing woman appeared before him, standing in a field of light. Her wound was gone, and her eyes held both kindness and sorrow. "Obi," she said softly, "you planted seeds of destiny, not wealth. Beware, for greed walks among your people." Obi bowed his head. "I only wish to feed my village and live in peace." The spirit nodded. "Then share wisely, but never reveal where the seeds came from. The greedy heart destroys what the pure heart builds." When Obi awoke, his heart felt heavy. He told his mother, old Mama Neka, about the dream. She nodded slowly and said, "My son, the gods speak in silence. Keep your blessing close, for not everyone who smiles at you wishes you well." Obi promised he would be careful, but fate, like a restless wind, was already stirring the leaves of his peace. It happened on a moonless night. 3 men crept into Obi's farm, their faces covered with black cloths. They carried baskets and whispered among themselves. They plucked the golden fruits greedily, laughing in low tones. But as they filled their baskets, the ground began to hum. A strange light rose from the soil, and the plants trembled as if alive. The men froze. Then, without warning, the earth opened beneath them with a loud crack. Their baskets fell, spilling golden fruits into the pit. The men screamed and vanished. The villagers heard the noise and ran to Obi's house. "What have you done, Obi?" they cried. "Your farm has swallowed men." Obi stood stunned, staring at the glowing hole. "I did nothing," he said, his voice shaking. But the chief's men dragged him before the elders. Rumors filled the air. Some said he had used dark magic. Others said the gods had cursed him for pride. The once praised farmer became a suspect overnight. The elders of Alaoma gathered under the great tree to judge Obi. The crowd filled the square. Even the king sent his messenger to watch. Chief Nyadozi stood proudly, his voice loud. "This man has brought evil upon us. He grows fruits that glow like fire, and now his land devours men. What else can this be but witchcraft?" The crowd murmured in fear. Obi knelt before them. "Elders," he said, "I am innocent. My fruits came from the kindness I showed to a stranger. I harmed no one." But the elders, bound by fear, could not see truth. They ordered that Obi's farm be burned and he be banished from Alaoma for bringing misfortune. Obi's heart broke, but he bowed his head. As he turned to leave, an old woman among the crowd cried out, "Innocence walks away while greed stays behind." The people hushed, but no one dared speak further. With only a small bag and his mother's blessing, Obi left the village. The farmer who once grew gold, now a wanderer with empty hands. The road that led away from Alaoma was long and quiet. Obi walked with heavy feet, his hoe slung across his shoulder, his bag nearly empty. The sun was fierce, and his heart was heavier than the load he carried. Sometimes he looked back and saw the faint smoke of his burned farm rising into the sky, the only thing left of his hard work. His mother's words echoed in his ears. "When the world rejects you, my son, remember that the earth itself has no gates." He walked for 2 days and nights, eating roasted corn and drinking from streams. He passed villages where strangers stared at him, seeing a tired man covered in dust. Yet still he kept moving, with no destination, only the hope that the gods who once smiled on him had not turned their faces away completely. On the 3rd day, Obi reached a strange village called Awaken, where the houses were built close together and no laughter was heard. The people looked pale, and smoke from dying fires rose weakly into the sky. He asked an old man by the roadside, "Why does sadness live here?" The man sighed, "Because our land is cursed. For 3 seasons no crops have grown, the streams have dried, and even the rain forgets us." Obi felt pity and offered to help. He said, "Let me see your farms." The old man laughed bitterly. "What can one stranger do that our strongest men could not?" Obi smiled gently. "Sometimes the earth listens to new hands." The man led him to the cracked fields where dust blew like ash. Obi knelt, touched the dry soil, and whispered a prayer to the spirit woman, the one he once helped. That night, while Obi slept under a tree near the empty farmland, a cool wind brushed his face. When he opened his eyes, the glowing woman stood before him once again, brighter than ever. "Obi," she said softly, "why do you cry for a people who do not know you?" Obi bowed his head. "Because their pain is mine too. The earth feeds us all." The spirit smiled. "You have kept your heart pure even after betrayal. The seeds I gave you were not meant to make you rich, they were meant to test your soul." She lifted her hand, and from her palm fell 3 new seeds, each shining like a star. "Plant these in this land before dawn, but remember, share the harvest freely. Greed will kill the gift again." Before Obi could thank her, she vanished into the night breeze, leaving only the scent of lilies behind. Before the first cock crowed, Obi dug 3 small holes in the middle of the dry land and planted the glowing seeds. By sunrise, something strange happened. Clouds began to gather for the first time in years. The villagers awoke to thunder and cool drops of rain. By midday, the entire sky wept with joy. Streams flowed again, and the soil turned dark and rich. Within days, new green shoots covered the land. The people watched in awe as the crops grew faster than their eyes could follow. "The curse is broken," they cried. The elders of Umueke called Obi before the community and bowed deeply to him. "You have saved our land," they said. "Who are you, stranger?" Obi smiled gently. "Only a farmer who once lost everything." They offered him gold and land, but he refused. "Let the blessings feed your children. That will be my reward." Back in Alaoma, Chief Nadodzi's wealth began to fade like smoke. His crops failed, his goats died, and his servants fled. Each night he dreamed of a glowing woman standing at the edge of his bed, her eyes like fire. "Greed has eaten your peace," she would whisper. "The farmer you cast out has saved another land." The chief would wake drenched in sweat, haunted by guilt. At last, the king heard rumors of the miracle in Umueke and learned that Obi was the man behind it. He summoned Chief Nododzi and said, "You cast out a blessing and called it a curse. Because of your pride, our land will know shame." The chief was stripped of his title and exiled from Alaoma. The people, seeing justice, began to whisper again, but this time in praise of the farmer they had wronged. Fate had turned its wheel, and truth had begun to rise from the ashes of lies. Months passed before Obi finally decided to return to Alaoma. The people of Umueke begged him to stay and lead them, but he said gently, "The soil calls me back to where I was cast away. Even rejected roots still long for their home." With a small bag and the blessings of the grateful villagers, he began his journey. When he reached the outskirts of Alaoma, he saw children playing in the dust, singing songs about the farmer who made the rain. No one recognized him at first. His clothes were clean, his eyes bright, and he carried himself with quiet strength. When he entered the marketplace, women stopped pounding yam. "Is that not Obi?" one whispered, "the man we thought was cursed?" Another replied, "But he walks like one favored by the gods." By evening, word spread like wind. The king sent for him, saying, "Let the farmer return to the palace. The one who fed the earth shall now feed the people." That night, as Obi slept in a guest room at the king's palace, the glowing woman appeared once again, but this time she wore a crown of light and spoke with the voice of thunder and music. "Obi, my time among mortals is done. I must return to the river of spirits." Obi knelt. "Who are you truly, my lady?" She smiled, her light softening. "I am Omalicha, daughter of Allah, the goddess of the earth. Long ago, my spirit was trapped by men who used greed to wound nature. I fell into your world pleading, and you, a poor farmer, chose kindness over fear. You did not know it, but when you helped me, you healed the wound of the earth itself." Obi trembled in awe. "So the seeds?" he whispered. She nodded. "They were the tears of Allah. Only a pure heart could make them bloom." When morning came, the king held a great feast in Obi's honor. Drums beat through the streets, dancers leapt like waves, and praise singers called his name. "Obi the pure! Obi the blessed! Obi the farmer of the gods!" The king stood and said, "You have proven that a man's worth is not in his wealth, but in his heart. From this day you shall be called Chief Obi Omalicha, guardian of the earth." The crowd cheered, and tears rolled down Obi's cheeks. But as he looked to the sky, he saw a faint glimmer of light, a memory of the spirit smiling above. He whispered to himself, "The gods do not eat food, but they taste gratitude." That night, Obi visited his mother's grave and placed golden fruits upon it. "Mother," he said softly, "your son has come home." The king declared a new annual festival called Ofala in honor of the day the land was restored. During the celebration, people from neighboring villages came to dance, eat, and plant new seeds. The children painted their faces with ash and gold to symbolize the union of struggle and blessing. Obi led the first prayer, saying, "May we never forget that kindness to one soul can heal 1,000 lands." As drums rolled into the night, the sky shimmered with strange lights. Elders said it was the spirit of Omalicha smiling upon Alaoma. Rivers flowed fuller that year, the crops were plenty, and even the poorest family had enough to eat. It was said that whenever the drums played, the fruits in Obi's garden glowed softly, not as bright as before, but enough to remind the people of the miracle that saved them all. Years passed. Obi grew older, his hair white like cotton, his voice slower but warm. He taught the young ones not just how to plant crops, but how to live with patience, honesty, and respect for the earth. "Remember," he often said, "the soil has ears, it listens to the heart that tills it." When he finally passed away, the villagers buried him beneath a great tree in the middle of his farm. That night, as the moon rose, the tree began to glow faintly, and golden fruits appeared among its branches. The people called it the Tree of the Farmer's Spirit. From then on, anyone who passed by would stop, touch the ground, and whisper, "May we be kind even when no one is watching." And somewhere, deep in the wind and roots, a voice, like the river's song, would whisper back, "Kindness never dies." If you enjoyed this story, please drop a comment with your thoughts. Like the video, share, and subscribe to African Tales by Bara for more powerful stories. Your support helps us bring more tales to life.